Welcome to the Book in You podcast. I'm Jared Cagle alongside Tim Elmore, and today we're going to be answering three big questions that you need to be asking as an author to help get your book published. Tim, so excited today to dive a little more into the publishing process. We've talked a lot on episodes before about the writing process and some of the other parts of this whole business of books. But today we're going to dive a little more into publishing, which is a tough side of the business. And I just want to point out today for our viewers, our listeners can't see what I'm about to point out, but they'll just have to be along for the ride, or maybe tune in on YouTube and you can see it. But for our viewers, they'll notice that you've been in the process of publishing a book of your own, and that's very obvious by the black eye that you have on camera.
Yes.
Any stories you'd like to share?
Well, I'll make this brief, but if you are watching, you're probably thinking, I can't listen to what you're saying. Your face looks awful. Listeners, I have a black eye, and it's pretty significant. It's actually way smaller, Jared, than it was 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, I was in Los Angeles helping my son and daughter-in-law move out of an apartment. And I was running upstairs. Problem number one, I'm not 21 years old anymore. I'm running upstairs with a big box in my hand. I hit my head on the corner of a stucco, and it just, bam. Well, it knocked me backwards. I somersault backwards on the stairs until I hit at the bottom. Yeah, it's all concrete too. It's all concrete. There's no carpet involved. So I hit my head, my tailbone, my elbow, my knee. I never lost consciousness. I kind of wish I would have. And I never lost my sense of humor. So I am laughing. My wife comes by and rushes me to the ER. It was a miracle, but they did a CAT scan, no concussion. I'm fine. They said, here's some Tylenol, go home, and it's going to take a little while, but you need to get better. But here's the crazy part of the story. 3 days after this happened, I'm still really looking bad. And I'm scheduled to speak in Manila in the Philippines before about 18,000 people. So I just think, I can't do this. Can I wear sunglasses like Stevie Wonder or something? But you know what? They had a professional makeup artist all lined up. And right before I went on for event number one, she made me up. And I'm telling you, you couldn't tell. She completely covered the flaws. Yes. Now now I see why ladies like the makeup. I'm a fan of cosmetology. Yeah. Anyway, so that's that.
That's remarkable.
Crazy. Yeah.
It's not something to laugh at. It sounds like it was actually miraculous that you're okay.
Yeah.
Tim.
Absolutely. It's good to be here.
And I know you're getting a little later in age, but we're still praying for a lot more years. And,
that's right. Absolutely. And I need to stop running up the stairs. That's what I need to stop doing.
Yeah. We just got to know your limits,
Yeah, that's right.
It reminds me of book writing and publishing, because, you take some blows along the way.
Yep.
And I'd love for you to kick us off today, Tim, as we talk about this topic and three big questions that you really brought to the table today that would be good for our listeners and the authors out there to be asking.
Absolutely. Let's jump in.
I love it. First question today, Tim, that you brought was a really good one, I thought. How has the world of publishing changed over the years?
Yeah. Well, my gosh, anybody that knows anything about this topic knows it has changed immensely. And I would say if we recorded this podcast a year from now, we'd have some more changes to report, because it's a very dynamic, tumultuous world right now where, quite frankly, listeners, even publishers are scrambling to help their publishing house survive. Some of them, not all, but many. There's a big five, but then there's a whole bunch of others that are just scrambling to try to make this thing work. So best way to answer this question in just a few minutes is probably this way. My first book was published 40 years ago in 1984. I think it was way before I deserved to be published, but I was asked by a denomination to do a book on training youth for leadership. So it's my very heartbeat, but they said, we need you to do something. So back then, the author was at the mercy of a publisher. Whatever they wanted, they ran the show. They held all the chips in their hands. The author would submit a manuscript, and all that intellectual property now belonged to the publisher. Much like a musician signs in with a record label and they lose that song. The record label now owns that song. That was the day of traditional publishers. So today it's different. There still are traditional publishers, but you can, listeners, maintain your content in your possession, your intellectual property. They call it IP. So when I use that term, just know that's what I'm talking about. So let me give you some options, 3 big options that you may want to consider if you're thinking about getting a book published, okay? So thanks to the internet and smart technology, authors can build their own platform. And once you build a pretty sizable platform, the publisher might need you more than you need them. I mean, I think that's safe to say. So to get your message out, okay? In other words, I have a tribe right now on social media, the different platforms, of about 100,000 people. So I'm not John Maxwell, but I got about 100,000. Well, when a publisher comes to me and says, I want you to write a book for us on the next gen, I'll usually say with a smile and politely, I bet you do, because I think I know more about the buyer than you might. And that's not an arrogance or conceit. I spent the last decades of my life with this person I'm trying to reach. So, Jared, do you remember that book that came out? I think it was in 2007 called The Shack.
Of
Do you
course.
remember that book? Yeah. So William P. Young wrote The Shack. He tried to get it published through a traditional publisher. That people kept saying no. They thought it was too weird. This novel is just too funky. No, 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 no. So when he couldn't get a traditional publisher interested, he decided to self-publish the book. This is where the story gets interesting. Within the first year, he had sold 1 million copies. And it became a USA Today, New York Times number one best-selling a book in the fiction category. Now, not nonfiction, but in the fiction category. Well, suddenly everybody was noticing. So by 2010, 3 years later, the Hachette Book Group, which is one of the big 5, approached William P. Young with great interest. We would like to publish this book. And of course, they took it over. But what I want you to notice is even in 2007, what was that? Gosh, that was 17 years ago. He had enough people that knew him and knew about him. And of course, people told people who told people, and it took off. So real quick, before I close on this answer, Jared, there's 3 big options you have, listeners, if you want to get a book published. The first one, you can self-publish, just like William P. Young did. That's where you write it, and then you find your cover designer, your graphic artist, your layout designer, your editor. You find all the people that need to help you get that book laid out and edited and proofed and ready to go. So a lot falls on you. That's the bad news. The good news is you keep every ounce of that intellectual property, okay? And by the way, you would even need then to upload it to Amazon, let's say, okay, and get Amazon. But the good news is you can do that. Amazon makes that process relatively easy. You could Google that question and you could get it. That's self-published. The second option is a hybrid model. And Jared, you and I, as we lead these book at a weekend sessions, we talk a lot about that. In fact, Maxwell Leadership Publishing kind of is a hybrid option. So the hybrid option, just like the word sounds, is a dual or 2 or 3 partners involved. This is where you identify one of several that can do this work. But when you do a hybrid publisher, you decide, or you collectively decide, they're going to do some things, you're going to do others. With Forefront, for instance, in Nashville, they let you keep all the intellectual property. They really walk you through soup to nuts, the editor, the cover design, blah, 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 blah. And then they take it out there and you keep the intellectual property. The only challenge is it costs quite a bit of money, so you'd have to navigate the money you'd need to spend. But the good news is then it's out there. So that's hybrid. Jared, why don't you insert yourself here as much or little as you want to? Maxwell Leadership Publishing is a great place, and you're in charge of that under Mark Cole. Talk about how that works, if you'd like, and maybe how people might just want to know about that.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Tim. I think this is a perfect opportunity to talk about the value that we're finding under the Maxwell Leadership imprint for
Yeah.
publishing. John really wanted to start an imprint because he saw that in the traditional form of publishing, there was some areas that he was
Yeah.
interested in uh, owning or retaining rights in a
Yeah.
different way,
Yeah.
and leveraging, as you mentioned earlier, when you have a platform as an author. Now the world is changing to a point where you really are the most important seller
Yeah.
of that book,
Yes.
and the publisher publishes the book. But when it comes down to it, if we're going to be equitable with the return, the author really should be more
Yeah.
incentivized in
Yes.
today's market. And so that's what you're talking about, and that's where
Yes.
we come in.
Yeah.
Max Leadership Publishing, we've created a model where we do utilize a hybrid model, and
Hmm.
we have partners that are helping us publish the work. And we're
Yep.
also providing marketing
Yeah.
materials, resources, strategy, and support to help the author get their message out. And in line with the principles, the values that we have built our company on, and have developed such a platform in the leadership space, we
Yeah.
want to now help other authors with their messages and get
Yeah.
their voice and their book out there too. And so, yeah, absolutely, we'd love to talk to anyone that's
Yeah.
interested
Yeah.
in publishing a book with us. And we have a few different options that we could consider. But if you are interested in that, email us at publishing@maxwellleadership.com, and we'll be able to
Yeah.
talk through the options there. And I'll remind us at the end of the show. But
Yeah.
thanks for that opportunity
Yeah.
to talk
Yeah.
about
You
it.
betcha. Well, you and I have had experience working together with Maxwell Publishing. It's really cool. I would say, listeners, if you're contemplating what to do, your values need to align with Maxwell Leadership.
That's
So
right.
they're not going to just publish anything.
Right.
But if you know their values and you go, man, that's my heart too, and I think I've got a fresh message, that might be worth just contacting
Yeah.
publishing at maxwellleadership.com. So then the third option, so it's self-published, hybrid. The third option is the traditional publisher, which we've already mentioned. That's where you find a trade publisher, maybe in New York City. They do all the work for you. They get it into stores, but you lose the IP, and and you still need to own a lot of the selling yourself. So, but some people are still using that model. Andy Stanley still used that model, and he's not interested in getting into the hybrid or self. So it's still right for some, but listeners, you'll need to choose for yourself. What's your best model? Yeah,
I think it's that was a great summary. In one of the things, I'm talking to authors all the time, and
yeah,
one of the things that scares authors away is just how complicated the world of
yeah,
publishing
yeah,
is. And so I really appreciate the way that you unpacked that, Tim, and helped us kind of see the different options that are out there. Let me ask you this question, and this will be our second big
yeah,
question for today. How important is the title and the cover design for especially a first time
yeah,
author?
yeah. Excellent question. I would say, in my humble opinion, it's actually a little more important for an aspiring or first time author than it is for a John Maxwell who's written 90 books. Here's why. They know John. So even if the cover is kind of mediocre, they go, well, I know the content's going to be decent.
Right.
For a first time author, just know people really do judge a book by the cover. They're going to look, they're going to see the title. Is it catchy? Are the colors cool and attractive? So it's your brand. Your first book out, your second book out, that's your brand for those who know very little about you, and you need to treat it as such. So let me give you 3 rules to follow under this question of how important is the title and the cover. Number 1, keep the cover simple. Your biggest temptation is to be so excited about your book and your content, you put way too much copy on the cover, and it's so busy. People go, I can't even look at this. It's 12-point font, and 6 paragraphs or whatever. So please work to keep it really simple. It's tempting to add too much, too many words, or to make it too busy and try to say everything.
That's good.
In fact, I think as we talked to Forefront, Jared, Jonathan Merck even said, that we're bordering on too much here. Okay, take that off, take that off. So keep it simple. Number 2, make sure it's unique. So you might see another cover from Stephen Covey or John Maxwell or Zig Ziglar or whatever, Jim Collins, and go, ooh, I want to look like that. I would say, no, you don't, because You want to make sure that you've got somewhat of a unique feel and flavor. So be sure there's nothing exactly like it on the market if you can. We talk a lot about differentiation on this podcast. I think even the cover ought to be differentiated. And you want it to stand out. If it's in a Barnes and Noble bookstore, you want your book to stand out. So I got very excited, Jared, when I first saw the cover design for A New Kind of Diversity. That was published by you guys at Maxwell Leadership. Forefront was involved, and they did a great job with everything, layout and everything. But I remember they sent me, 4 or 5 options for the cover. I love the shoes, at the top and bottom of that cover. That made it so fun to look. Old people's shoes, young people's, female, male. It was just a really cool cover. Do you have one there? Are you looking? Oh, there it is. Okay, show the viewers. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, you can see the shoes. There's gym shoes and, female shoes that are probably 48 years old. Pardon me if you wear those shoes and you're 20. But anyway, you can see that was a cool spin showing, there's different generations working at my job or work at my workplace. So anyway, that's number 2. The third thing is make it memorable. Something about your title and cover ought to be memorable to where when they are going on to Amazon or Maxwell Leadership or Barnes and Noble, they go, I remember the title was really memorable. So for instance, Jared, you and I have been talking about this. The new book I'm working on now is The Future Begins with Z. Well, that's a weird title, but what I'm talking about is Generation Z. They're the next generation of coming into the workforce. So I thought that may not be the title in the end, but right now it's the working title. But I thought, okay, that's kind of a clever thing. And then I would do a subtitle, how Generation Z is going to upset the workforce and how you can capitalize on it. But even if that's not the best, I'm trying to give you an example. Think of something that's more than how to blah, blah, blah. It needs to be memorable. And then let me say something about the design itself. You're going to need to identify a graphic designer if you're not working with a traditional publisher. You're probably, just to get your expectations set, you're going to get 4 or 5 iterations of the cover. And they allow you to pick one or mix and match number 2 and 4. But just know you're probably not to get 50 for you guys that are really detail oriented. You're probably going to get 4 or 5 samples and you get to kind of mix and match and choose these colors. And you'll get 2 to 3 volleys. Is that about right? Is that what you remember? 2 to 3 volleys back and forth. And then they go, okay, you need to pay me more if you want to keep talking about this for the next month or so. But that's usually a realistic expectation. So a couple of illustrations before we go on to question number 3. When I did the book, Nurturing the Leader in Your Child, I've got it up there, but I don't have the cover. I took the slip cover off. I remember talking to Thomas Nelson Publishers, and it was all about an adult pouring into a child. So my original cover design idea was, the older hand coming to clasp the younger hand. And you know what Thomas Nelson said? They were very polite, but they said, that's cliche. We need to show pictures of kids that are happy. I said, well, that doesn't have anything to do with leadership. They said, it doesn't matter. A parent's going to buy this and they're going to want to see happy kids and go, if that will be my child, I want to buy this book. Isn't that interesting? So they were less concerned about say it in the picture, what you're doing. They were more saying, let's let the viewer look at outcomes. They're going to be happy kids once they learn to lead. And they chose male colors, which were kind of a red and kind of a gold. And I said, why those colors? And they said, you know what they told me, Jared? They said 80% of the books out there are bought by women. They said, we need to choose male colors because the women are going to buy it anyway, so to speak. We need to make sure we attract dads, for the same thing too. So you do want to think through your colors. When I did the book Generation IY, Our Last Chance to Say Their Future, that was something I remember Celia Yates and I were talking about that book. And we decided we need to have a black cover. Not because we're doom and gloom, but we said, unless we lead these kids differently, it's not going to be happy. That's why we changed it to Our Last Chance to Save Their Future. We wanted to create a sense of urgency. We need to lead these young people today on their screens differently than we are today. Also, let me just say this. If you're a new author, we may want to talk about this on another podcast. Find third-party endorsements. If they don't know you around the country, find people they might know and respect, or at least find a CEO of a company or a CFO or whatever, that they would just say, oh, okay, if this person likes it, then maybe I'll like it as well. So be sure and find statements of endorsement by people that they would agree to read it and give you a statement. And then when you choose the cover and you choose a title, think about ancillary products. So Jared, you think about this all the time. The book is only the beginning of the journey. There might be a video course. There might be, Chris Godey's team in business solutions, corporate solutions. So you want to think beyond the book. What are some other products and services we could offer off this book? You want to take a minute and talk about that at all?
Well, I will just briefly. I mean, that's something I'm passionate about because we built businesses on the same model that you're describing. But I would say the book is the core, but it's not the only element to this whole business. And I'll also say to that end, as you're considering what ancillary products to create from the book or derivatives that you might create and write around the book or from the book, I would say don't force it. Don't try to make your book something it's not. Don't Malcolm Gladwell said to us one time that he's not trying to answer questions that aren't already being asked. Listen to the market. What are they asking? And meet them there. If they're not asking it, if your book doesn't fit in corporate America, don't target corporate America. Find where it fits and target it there. I've seen a lot of authors trying to maximize every possible nook and cranny, but there's power in focus.
There really is. And you and I both have heard this phrase: if you write to everyone, you're really writing to no one. So find your audience. That's absolutely for sure.
Really good. Tim, tell me this, just our final question for today. Once you write a book, as the author, is your job done at that point?
Yeah, you and I both know this answer, Jared. The answer is absolutely no, you're not done. In fact, you've only just begun. So let me talk to you real quick, listeners, about expectations and disillusionment. Jared and I both have worked with many, many authors, and it's always an exciting proposition to write a book. However, I find that many people enter with some illusions about, I'll write the book and I'll trust everybody else to make sure it sells 1 million copies, in New York City. Writing the book is only 1/3 of the process. And I'm going to talk to you about the other 2/3 in just a minute. But let me make a statement that I want you to ponder. I don't think we can get disillusioned unless we're first illusioned. Meaning, I'm not going to get disillusioned about anything unless I have some illusion about how life's supposed to be, that everybody ought to be nice, or I don't know, this book's going to be easy, or this, it's going to sell 1 million copies. So just know, I want to talk you out of any illusions you have that this will be a simple process, or once I write it, my job's done and everybody else is going to carry it from here because they're going to love me and love this book just like I do. You need to drop the illusions and get real. So there's 3 significant stages to the book producing process. Stage 1 is the writing of the manuscript. So that's what you understand. That's typing the chapters, it's editing, it's reworking those edits, it's editing again, the cover design and everything else. So that's the writing process. The second step is the actual production. So that's the creation of the book itself, the product, if you will. So your words on a Google Doc or a Word doc. So the production is the look, the feel, the layout, the design, the graphics, the cover. That's what we've been talking about, and that's going to be a big part of the production process. But that's a whole nother third that may take as long as that first third. And then the last and final part is the marketing of the book. And I think more and more people get shocked that this is such a big role to play as an author. Jared just mentioned this. You're the number one seller of your book. Will others make it available? Of course they will. But you need to see yourself as the flag waver for this book, and you are everywhere you go. You're talking about, you're getting on podcasts, etc. So this may be the most important part. In fact, I think good books don't really get out there because the author might have grown up or lived in a remote part of the country. They don't have a big tribe, and the book just never gets out. So the author really is the key to the marketing. And I would say to the publisher, your platform is even more important than the content of your book. Both are important, but the author might, or excuse me, the publisher might just say, your platform, I'm going to ask you that first before I ask any other questions about your content. So I'll stop there.
It's a good point. It might be a hard pill to swallow for some people out there, but I think it's important for us to realize
Yeah.
the platform is such a significant element to tip the
Yeah.
scales, and the marketing that you're going to have to do at times is going to have to be uncomfortable. It's probably going to push you as an author beyond
Yeah.
what you want. But
Yeah.
if you're writing a book today and you want it to sell early in the life of
Yeah.
it, you're going to have to get in the game,
Yeah.
marketing it and being that spokesperson for
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
And that's probably a whole nother episode, Tim, but
It is. Yeah.
important to point out.
Yeah, I think that's what I would say about that one. Just know it's only the writing itself is only a small, third of the whole journey.
Tim, as we were talking before, we were talking about the team nature of
Yeah.
the book. I'd love for you to kind of illustrate
Yeah.
that for us as we close today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listeners, I'm sure you've put together from our conversation today that writing a book is really a team effort. Loads of people are involved, and you want to make sure that every one of them is a good or even excellent at their job. But Jared, I'll tell you what, maybe the best illustration or analogy I can offer. This last summer, we enjoyed watching the Olympics from Paris. It was really fun, lots of lights and great athletes. It seems to me every single set of Olympics, every 4 years, at least one person on the relay team, the 400-meter relay team or whatever,
Sure. Yeah.
drops the baton. And oftentimes it's the USA. I hate to say it's a lot of times it's our own country. But think about that. You got 4 of your fastest runners. All of them deserve to be in that relay team. But if just one of them doesn't pass the baton well to the next one, or the next one doesn't get it from the last one, it's on the ground and you have lost your chance to win. I don't want to overspeak here, but this is like a relay team getting a book ready. And every one of your people need to grasp and run their best race and then pass it on to the next along the way. Each runner is important, just like creating a book. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
That encouragement. And again, if you're looking for a team to help you with your book, Maxwell Leadership Publishing would love to have a conversation. Email us at publishing@maxwellleadership.com, and we would love to talk to you about some options and how we could come alongside you and help. We'd also love it if this has been valuable to you and you want some more content from our podcast here. We'd love for you to subscribe and join us on this journey. We release episodes every couple of weeks, and so we'd love to have you as a part of this tribe as we continue on. But until next time, just a reminder, the world needs the book in you.